Good evening. This meeting will come to order. This is the Zoning Board of Appeals October 2023 meeting. Let's begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. A roll call, please.
Mr. Smith has been excused. Ms. Ferrante? Here. Mr. Montano?
Here.
Mr. Soto?
Here.
Mr. Wolf?
Here.
Mr. Dubois?
Here.
Ms. Hirsch? Here. And Chairman Tozzola?
Here. Also present this evening are Stephen Harris, our zoning officer, and Meg Green, our recording secretary. If you're here this evening for item number 6, 72 Westport Place, that has been moved up to next month, November. Let's see. Oh, we can start with number 1. If you feel there's a board member that might be a conflict of interest to your application, please let us know. Number 1, please.
Item number 1, 23 Pearl Street, MVP 22/459/1, R5, R. Nicole Esquire, R. Kelly Esquire for Mark and Tony Piazza, appellants. Appeal the decision of the zoning enforcement officer in accordance with the provisions of section 9.2.1 regarding issuance of a notice of violation dated 6/28/23 demanding removal of a deck and removal of improvements to rear building.
Good evening. Please identify yourself and an address, please, where we can reach you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board. My name is Ryan Kelly. I'm an attorney from Owens, Shine, and Nicola. I'm here representing my clients, Mark and Tony Piazza, the owners of 23 Pearl Street.
Thank you. Just move forward with your presentation.
Yes, thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, this application or appeal is a result of a notice of violation that was received by my clients towards the end of June. I believe the date is June 28th, regarding a deck and a shed that's on their property at 23 Pearl Street. Mr. and Mrs. Piazza unfortunately just purchased the property roughly 2 weeks before that letter was written. They closed on the sale of the property early in June and moved into the house and received the letter. The deck and the shed were pre-existing, built by the previous owner who had constructed them several years prior to my clients purchasing the property. I believe his name is Mr. Tarantino. So Mr. Tarantino had owned the property since, I believe, 1985. In 2002, he had applied for a permit for the deck and for the shed. He was permitted to build the shed. He was not permitted to build the deck. I believe, however, the deck had already been constructed and he was rebuilding it at the time. So our appeal tonight is under Section 8-13A of Connecticut General Statutes. If ladies and gentlemen need a copy, I've printed it from the state's website, which essentially says that if a building or structure is situated on our property for more than 3 years and no enforcement action has been undertaken by the town's then precluded from enforcing the violation. The building and or structure become a non-conforming use.
This deck that you're referring to, is it a matter of setbacks? What's making it outstanding right now that it's a violation?
I believe it was the setbacks. I believe when Mr. Tarantino applied, the setback was the reason that was given. He was denied.
Commissioners, any questions? Go ahead, Mr. Soto.
Can I get a copy of that state reg?
The statute?
Yeah, the statute.
I just also would like to note that the deck and the shed have been taxed. On the assessor's card, they're listed as part of the taxable portion of the property. So I don't think this was an issue where the town was unaware of the deck and the shed, especially considering Mr. Tarantino's previous applications.
Okay, Commissioners, any other questions? Is there anyone else speaking on this appeal?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Mr. Harris?
Good evening, Stephen Harris, Milford CEO. I'll walk you through this this appeal. First, I'm going to read some notes into the record, and then I'll walk you through the history of the property and the appeal and so forth. So, a summary of this is a quote. Summary of facts and procedural history. On June 11, 2002, the ZBA denied a request to construct a deck, but approved the request to keep an existing shed. On May 22, 2023, a field inspection showed the deck had been constructed between the house and the rear shed, and that the shed had been improved with new flooring, sheetrock, lighting, and a kitchen, minus the stove. A review of city records did not return either permits or approvals for the deck or the improvements to the shed. City's position. The Zoning Board of Appeals denied the construction of the deck, therefore it should not have been built. The improvements to the shed should not have been made without a permit or approval. The appellant claims the deck and shed are protected under Connecticut General Statute 8-13A. Assessor's records show the shed was built in 1915 prior to the adoption of zoning in 1930. It is therefore considered existing non-conforming as to its location and may continue. However, the deck was constructed at some time after the 2002 variance request to construct it was denied. Connecticut General Statute 813A reads in relevant part, when a building or other structure is so situated on a lot that it violates a zoning regulation of a municipality that prescribes the location of such building or structure in relation to the boundaries of the lot, and when such building or structure has been so situated for 3 years without the institution of an action to enforce such regulation, such building or structure shall be deemed a non-conforming building or structure. The plain language of Connecticut General Statute 813A does not protect a structure specifically denied a variance to be built. I'll read that again. The plain language of 813A does not protect a structure specifically denied a variance to be built. Lastly, Connecticut General Statute 813A does not protect interior improvements to a building without a permit. So in conclusion, a variance to construct the deck was denied. The deck was illegally constructed after the variance denial. The plain language of 813A does not protect structures denied a variance and does not protect interior renovations to buildings performed without a permit. For these reasons, I respectfully ask the board to uphold the notice of violation. End quote. If you look on the screen, let's go to, all right, so here is, so here's the original variance. Let's see if we get a little closer. So here's the notice saying that the deck be denied and the shed approved. And you can see it was recorded. The variance was recorded on land records. There's the application itself for the rear yard setback to allow the deck and shed to remain. And this is the plan that they submitted with the application. So here's the house here, here's the deck, and this is the pre-existing shed. Okay, what you're looking at now is the field report from May 22nd of this year. There's the front of the house, side of the house, stone steps leading up to the rear. This is the shed in the background. There's the deck that's built. This is around the corner. The deck is off to the left. There's the deck, there's the shed. This is the opposite side of the house, stone steps leading up to the deck, and this is the door to the shed. And now we're at the top of the stairs, again, deck, shed. This is along the side of the house. This is through the front window. As you can see, this is not a shed. This house has been finished. You got new flooring, furniture, walls, nice lighting, refrigerator. I was not able to get inside, but this is just looking through the window.
Steve, is there a bathroom in it? Or you don't know? Is there a bathroom in it?
I wasn't able to get inside. I presume there was, but I can't say for sure. I mean, if you just look at the last photograph. This is looking through the door, the front door. So this is the kitchen area. I don't know what's down this hallway, but if somebody did all of this and they didn't put a bathroom in, I'd be surprised.
What's the size of the shed?
Pardon?
The size of the shed, do you know?
I think it's a little over 400 square feet.
No, it doesn't say. It's 35 feet from here to here. It doesn't say how big it is. If that's 10 feet, maybe 20, 25 or so long, by about 12 wide or so. Just guessing from this measurement here.
Stephen, how did this come to your attention? How did this come to your attention?
Pardon, I think.
The improvements and the existence of the deck, how did this come to your attention, that this was existing?
Somebody, I want to say somebody complained. It was brought to my attention somehow. I don't quite remember. No, it doesn't say. I don't remember how it came to my attention.
None of this was discovered before there was just recently a real estate transaction, correct?
Correct.
None of that was found out before they had the transaction?
One doesn't normally just randomly inspect properties unless you have a reason to.
Do you know when their closing date was on the property?
I believe it was earlier middle of June. It was before the letter was received. Yeah, it was before the letter was received.
What was it? What was the date, please, again?
I don't have the exact date. I believe it was,
Well, it was this year?
yes,
Okay.
yes,
All right,
June of
thank-
this year.
All right, thank you. All right, any questions for Mr. Harris? No?
Just one more document.
Do you have anything else, Stephen?
This is the actual notice of violation itself, which is dated June 28th. So again, it just cites them for building a deck without a permit because it was denied a variance, and improvements to the shed without permits as well. So in closing, I would just like to reiterate that Section Connecticut General Statute 813A does not protect structures that were specifically denied a variance to be built, and it doesn't address interior renovations to buildings.
Okay, any other questions for Mr. Harris?
Mr. Harris, we saw a poured foundation underneath that deck that's attached to the shed. I thought I saw footings continued off the main property supporting that deck, not the shed.
This looks like an old...
It's existing, the other side.
This looks, I don't know, this looks fairly old. This is fieldstone, this is kind of...
Didn't we have a
block.
side view?
This is open here.
Okay. So we could see that patio that he put the deck on existing, that supports the shed. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, again, any questions? Any other questions? You may have the last comments.
Thank you. As far as the statutory language goes on 8-13A, I can have out more copies, but I don't believe it says anything about a previously denied application. There may be case law on that either way, and if this gets taken up on appeal again, that could come up, but at least the way that I read the statute, it makes no mention of that. As far as my closing, I would say that this really, I mean, you can look at the letter of the law, but there's also, I believe, a fundamental issue with fairness here, and that my clients bought this property and a week or two later received this notice of violation for something that the previous owner had done 20 plus years ago, and the town, as our position is that it's, you know, with the assessor's card showing the deck and the shed, it was known by the town at least that the deck was there, and I don't think my clients should be punished for something that a prior owner had done. And we'd like to work with the town and with Mr. Harris to find another amicable resolution for this. My clients are new to Milford. They're not here to make enemies. They're here to play by the rules. They've been trying to get into Milford for 10 years. This is their dream house by the beach, and now they've stepped on a landmine here. So Mr. Harris has talked to us about possibly converting the deck into a part of the house and making it one large structure. My clients are not opposed to that. They would actually like that. Their intent with this is to possibly turn it into a living room area, not a place where somebody's going to be sleeping. So that's something they're agreeable to, but I think that would probably necessitate us filing a lawsuit against the prior owner, which we're ready and willing to do, but I don't think it would be fair to impose fines and sanctions on my clients in the interim, especially just considering that this was not something that they did, it's something that they walked into. And I believe the statute was designed to protect against situations like this.
Joe, I have a question.
Go ahead, Bill.
So if you converted the deck into a living room and part of the house, what would you do with the shed? Because the shed's abutting the deck.
It would be converted so that the shed would be a part of that structure, one large structure, just house, deck that just becomes a hallway or whatever you might have, whatever they might want to do with it, but essentially make the shed a part of the house. I think the concern here is that this would be an accessory apartment. They're not going to use it as an accessory apartment. That's not the intent as it is, and that's not the intent, going forward. If they end up doing that, they would just make it a part of the house, make it into a living room, TV room, something that I think that everybody would be happy with.
Ms. Hirsch.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Council, first, welcome to your clients to Milford, and we look forward to working with you in the future to find a solution. I commend them for wanting to be open to working with the city on how to resolve this issue. It sounds like they inherited a problem that the prior owners potentially caused. How long did the prior owners reside at the property?
I believe since 1985.
Okay.
He wrote us a letter. I don't have copies of it. I can show it to you, but he indicates that he purchased the property in 1985.
Right, and without the issue being raised, it wouldn't have been flagged necessarily during the real estate transaction.
Correct. I don't believe anything came up on the municipal search. I didn't handle the closing myself, but that was what I was told when I was researching this.
Okay. And so I think there is a resolution here, but as the statute is written, do you agree with Mr. Harris's interpretation that when the Zoning Board of Appeals specifically denies a particular structure, that you can't then say, well, we did it anyway, and now we get to keep it because you didn't see it within 3 years?
I certainly see why that argument would be raised, but as I read the statute, I don't see that language. I don't see that written into the statute.
Thank you.
Mr. Montano, you had the question? No? Go ahead, Mr.
Counselor,
Wolf.
you said you did not perform the closing for your client?
Correct.
Separate attorney?
Yes,
Do you do real estate closings?
occasionally.
And typical research would be for the existing footprint or how that house was sold for the way it was sold?
So
And-
typically, we would order a title search upon the signing of the contract for a title rundown, see who actually owns the property, make sure the seller is the actual owner. And then it's customary also to do what's called a municipal search, which is the title searcher also performs that. They go to town hall, they look at the town's records, see what's recorded on the land records concerning the property, and they look for things like this, notices of violation that are recorded. They look for permits that are not either issued or permits that have not been closed. If there's electrical work where there was a permit issued and then no CO issued, then that's something that would come up to us as something to say to the seller's attorney, hey, we need to resolve this or we're not going to close. And I can guarantee you that any lawyer that doesn't want to have a malpractice lawsuit is going to bring that up to the closing attorney as soon as they see that in the title search or any kind of issue like that in the municipal search.
Agreed. So what I did hear is your clients might have stepped on a landmine when they purchased the house. And typically the way that these are sold, if it was presented with new improvements or new deck, that could lead you to down the path that, hey, we might be buying a pig in a poke here. The last thing that I believe I heard, did you mention that you believe the deck that's attached to this shed was recently done within the past 2 or 3 years?
No, I don't believe so.
Okay.
The deck, according to what we heard from Mr. Tarantino, was built a very long time ago and then was rebuilt. And he may have wanted to expand it. I don't know, but that's, I think, why he was denied originally in 2002.
So the rebuild, we're assuming, was in the past 2 or 3 when he buffed out this shed?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Yeah, 2002, yeah.
Based on the way you just described a municipal search, I'm confused as to why the variance denial would not have come up.
It's confusing to me, too.
All right, any other questions before we close this? No? Okay, we're all set, sir? We don't have any other questions for you, so the hearing is closed.
Thank you.
Okay, we either have to uphold or overturn. Mr. Harris, any other options? We just have two here, right? We either have to uphold or overturn this.
Just as a matter of technical clarification only, the board can uphold my decision to issue the notice of violation or overturn it.
Stephen, if they're willing to enclose the deck and make it part of the house, do they need a variance?
And the hearing has been closed, so I can't offer any new information.
We're not under discussion. We'd have a motion yet. We need a motion. and then we'll have a discussion after we have a second.
I motion to uphold Mr. Harris's decision.
I second. All right, we have a motion to uphold the zoning officer's decision.
I'm sorry, to
Does
clarify.
he have to read that all right now first? All right.
Motion to uphold.
Read what you have in front of you.
The decision of the zoning enforcement officer in accordance with provision section 9.2.1 regarding the issue of a notice of violation dated 6/28/23, demanding removal of deck and removal of improvements to the rear building.
All right, we had a motion to uphold, and we had a second on the motion. Discussion?
Well, you know, it was on the assessor's card, and they didn't pick it up at the closing. I feel I can't, hold these people responsible for this. I mean, and now they got to tear it down when they bought it with it there, you know what I mean? And it was on the assessor's card, so I mean, that's what you look at.
Yeah, but we have violations here, and those violations have to be cleared.
Well, I understand the shed, that part, but the deck is what I'm having a problem with.
I think the deck is actually a lot more straightforward because there was a variance request and it was denied. To Ms. Hirsch's point earlier, I'm not sure that carries with it an expectation that the zoning office is going to check up on things that were denied to make sure people aren't just steamrolling over what's been allowed. I don't think there should be an expectation that he needs to check up that they're not doing what they were told they could not do.
Yeah, but how can you hold the buyers responsible?
Well, that's a very unfortunate situation, and I'm not trying to hold the buyers responsible, but the fact is it has come up now. I'm also very confused as to why this did not come up on a municipal search, and no one can speak to that.
All right, any other discussion? We have a motion to uphold, and we have a second. Mr. Wolf.
I'm with the motion.
Mr. Soto.
Against the motion.
Ms. Ferranti.
With the motion.
Mr. Montano. Against the motion. All right, I'm with the motion. Motion fails. Okay. Motion fails to uphold. Yes. 3-2. We have 2, so motion failed.
Item number 2.
No, item number 2. Go ahead. Read number 2.
Okay. Item number 2, 170 Broadway, MVP 13/132/07, 19R5, Kevin Kersaden Esquire for 170 Broadway, LLC owner. Vary section 3.1.4.1, westerly side yard setback to 3 feet where 10 feet required. 4.1.4, vary westerly side yard projection to 1.5 feet where 8 feet permitted for deck projections to construct a new single-family dwelling in accordance with the submitted materials and site plan, Codispoti and Associates 8/4/20, revised 6/7/23.
Okay. 170 Broadway is a carryover from last month, and the only thing we're doing on it right now is voting on this. Mr. Soda was not here last month. Ms. Hirsch took his place, so Ms. Hirsch will vote on this evening. So voting on 170 Broadway will be Ms. Ferranti, Ms. Hirsch, Mr. Montano, Mr. Wolf, and myself, okay? All right, so we need a motion on this.
I move to approve the request to vary section 3.1.4.1 westerly side yard setback to 3 feet where 10 feet required, 4.1.4 very westerly side yard projection to 1.5 feet where 8 feet permitted for projections to construct a new single-family dwelling in accordance with the submitted materials and site plan, Codispodi and Associates 8420, revised 6723, with the condition that we approve the westerly side yard setback and deny the projection.
Second.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and we have a second. Discussion?
I appreciate this application's efforts to move the structure further inland and outside of more extreme flooding areas, and I recognize that with the first half of the request, side yard setback to 3 feet where 10 required, the existing house is at 2.5 feet, so this is certainly an improvement, if not still in line with the regulation, and I absolutely appreciate those efforts. Moving to the back where the decks are, I'm looking at decks covering 3 sides of the house and and a side yard projection to 1.5 feet. It seems very extreme considering the amount of deck that there is and how close that would bring it to the property line, hence my condition.
Any other comments? So we would be approving this with conditions. Okay. Mr. Wolf?
I'm with the motion.
Ms. Ferranti?
With the motion.
Mr. Montana?
With the motion.
Ms. Hirsch?
With the motion.
I'm with the motion. It's approved with conditions.
Item number 3, 819 East Broadway, MVP 27/474/50-A, R10, Kevin Crusaden Esquire for Jason Garelick, owner, Section 3.1.4.1, north side yard to 5 feet where 10 feet required, 4.1.4, northerly projection to 3.5 feet where 8 feet permitted, 4.1.4, southerly projection of 1.7 feet where 4 feet permitted, survey Paul Stoll, 9/20/23, plans Mingalello and Associates Architects LLC, 7/5/23, and submitted materials.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. For the record, my name is Kevin Crusaden. My office is at 3 Lafayette Street here in Milford. With me tonight is Jason Garelick, property owner. We have done the proper notices. Proper notice has been posted and mailed, and that information is submitted for the record. This lot is a pre-existing non-conforming lot, which was part of a subdivision map from 1911, 18 years before the Milford zoning regulations came into play and the subdivision regulations were enacted in 1929. The existing house is a single-story bungalow style that was built prior to 1920 or around 1920, 9 years before the zoning regulations were put into play. The lot was originally 30 feet by 99, 42, and 117, or approximately 3,900 square feet. The history, some of you or all of you may be familiar with East Broadway and that side of town. There's accretion, which is the adding of sand over time, so the lot is now much longer than it originally was. That doesn't impact, although we have more lot area, it doesn't help with the construction of a house because the lot is still about half the width of what was required. The minimum required width is 60 feet for this zone. This lot is 31 feet. The existing house is 5.89 feet from the property line on one side, and it's even closer with the wood. I think it's a little under 5 feet on the other side. The setbacks required here are 5 feet and 10 feet. There's also a wood deck on the southwesterly side that is about 6 inches or half a foot from the property line. So 5.89 feet existing. The current structure, including the existing deck, is 68 feet long. And that existing deck is 0.1 feet from the property line on the northerly side of the property. The 3.5 feet that we're asking for the projection is for a bay window, which is on the northerly side, and that's where 8 feet is permitted. But like I said, right now, the current, Stephen, if you scroll up, I believe, to the existing conditions survey, is the one right there. You can see where it's 5.89 feet, and then you see where the deck or the deck stairs, towards the water line, it's 0.1 feet from the property line. I'll get to why this is important in a minute. Southwesterly side yard setback of 1.7 feet for the proposed house, where 4 feet required is for the access stairs. So Milford has a zoning regulation. If Mr. Gerlich was to elevate the existing structure, he would be given an exception for access stairs. That's to encourage people to elevate their houses to meet with the flood zone requirements. In this particular case, building a new structure, you don't get that additional leeway, and you need to have a variance. But however, we need to have the access stairs, obviously, to access the property, the house that's now been elevated. Without a variance, the structure that can be built is 15 to 16 foot wide. I've submitted a memo that is kind of a standard memo for me that you're used to seeing about the standards for granting a variance and how this complies with it. So as you know, the standard for granting a variance is 2 conditions must be met. The variance must be shown not to substantially affect the comprehensive zoning plan. What that in the comprehensive zoning plan is your zoning regulations and zoning map. And this is a single-family house. The use would be a single-family house, so there's nothing that's dramatically impacting that. And adherence to the strict letter of the zoning ordinance must be shown to cause unusual hardship unnecessary to the carrying out of the general plan. There is case law exception, which I've mentioned in that memo as well, that in addition to the standard hardships, like in this case, there's a clear hardship of the lot being half the width. It's important in this case because we're only asking for side yard setback variances, 5 feet, where right now 5.89 feet is existing for the house structure. So another way to qualify to meet the hardship test is to reduce existing nonconformities, and by virtue of doing a brand new house rather than trying to elevate or add on to the existing house, they're able to move the house a little further back from the street. So right now I think it's 7 feet from the street, where it'll be 10 feet if this were to be approved. So that's a reduction of a nonconformity. The wooden deck that allows access over the sand to the house right now is basically right up on the property line. The new stairs will be, if approved, will be 1.7 feet from the property line, but that's just the access stairs. The rest of the foundation will be 5.2 feet from the property line, where right now it's a little under 5 feet from the property line. So that's the reduction of these nonconformities are valid hardships according to Connecticut case law. There's Varillo v. Zoning Board of Appeals that mentions that. There's Hescock, I think, v. Zoning Board of Appeals, and that one's specifically relevant to this because that's a case where the applicants wanted to raise, meaning in this case, in this context, demolish the existing non-conforming residential structure, which is what Mr. Gerlich would like to do, and construct a new one. And because there was substantial evidence that the new construction would reduce and eliminate existing
evening, and welcome to the September 11th, 2023 business meeting of the Milford Board of Education. Once we rise for the pledge, let us just take a moment afterwards to hold space in our hearts and remember and reflect on those lost and impacted by the events of 9/11, 22 years ago. It's been a long time. So please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Ms. Griffin, can we have a roll call for attendance, please?
Adam DeYoung.
Here.
Catherine Ailing.
Here.
Megan Doyle.
Here.
Andrew Fowler.
Here.
Tracy Irby.
Here.
Emily McDonough Souza.
Here.
Gary Pellicetti.
Here.
Una Petrosky.
Here.
Cindy Wolf Boynton.
Here.
And Susan Glennon.
Here.
All members present.
Thank you. Okay, we have our student reports this evening. Normally I flip a coin, but we got a little distracted.
That is allowed to have up to 3 stories. We would need a variance, in addition to these variances, for this new structure. So the previous plan was to add on to the existing structure, which is, like I said, very old and only 1 story, and it just didn't make sense to do that. So it didn't make financial sense, and it also didn't require the elevation of the structure. So Mr. Garelick made a business decision and basically a land development decision to come back in with a new house. But the only way that the new house can be built that's at least 20 feet wide is by asking for these variances.
Also, not that I live on East Broadway, but I have a family member there. Aren't the homes up and down that street, there are some that are much larger square footage on a footprint that could be smaller?
There are some large houses on East Broadway. I had looked at that after our meeting last month with respect to another house on Broadway, the 170 Broadway, but I looked at it in respect in preparation for tonight's meeting. There's houses that are on the street, up and down the street, that are 3, 4, 5,000, 6,000. There's a few that are almost 7,000 square feet. So I think this house is in around 3,000. The proposed house would be around 3,000, 3,500 square feet, I think.
Thank
so
you,
it's in
sir.
line. That's in line with the neighborhood. But I do want to follow up on one question, make it clear that from the beginning of this project, going back, I've been working it now for about 1.5 years with Mr. Garelick and some of his design professionals. He's been living here. This is his home. He's married to Renee, who I met for the first time tonight, and they intend to make this their permanent home. So it's not a development property, just to make that clear. Yep. Sorry, Mr. Chairman, I have some letters. I have a letter of support from Don Nelson Hart at 827 East Broadway, Paul Chiacchetti from 811 East Broadway, Larry Lana from 823 East Broadway, looks like Jay Merzlish, and Amy Zabin from 815 East Broadway, and then Pat Pacelli from 831 East Broadway. They all write to express their strong support for Jason's variance application to reduce the side yard setbacks as we've requested. If I can submit those.
Any further questions for Attorney Crusade? Is there any? Go ahead, Mr. Wolf.
Counsel, just looking at those stairs that are on the side with the landing, It's curiosity more. Can you get around it if you came in from the asphalt drive? Do you have to go up the stairs, over the landing, and back down to get to the front, or can you get around it? Is that a fence? Would that be the plan?
Mr. Garelick states that it's a little narrow. There's a fence there, but it's very low to the ground. So I think that the way it's designed is to be able to go up the landing and go back down to the side.
around.
Right now, that whole property line where the proposed stairs are has a wooden platform that's right up against the property line, which would be removed. Yeah.
Understood. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else speaking in favor of this application? Please come forward if you're speaking in favor. I think you're going to have to pull the microphone down closer so you can use it. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Gloria Lana. I live at 823 East Broadway. My husband and I live next door to Jason and Renee Garelick. He would be here this evening, but he wasn't well, but he signed a form that that Mr. Crusaden just presented to you. They're wonderful neighbors, and we have no objection to Jason's request for a variance. Do you have any questions?
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Anyone else speaking in favor? Anyone here opposed? Is there anyone here opposed? Opposed to 819 East Broadway? No further questions, commissioners? This hearing's closed.
I move to approve the request to vary Section 3.1.4.1 north side yard to 5 feet where 10 feet required, 4.1.4 northerly projection to 3.5 feet where 8 feet permitted, 4.1.4 southerly projection of 1.7 feet where 4 feet permitted. Survey Paul Stoll, 9/20/23. Plans Mingalello and Associates Architects LLC, 7/5/23.
I second it.
Okay, we have a motion to approve, and we have a second on the motion. Mr. Wolf?
I'm with the
discussion?
motion.
I'm sorry.
Nope.
Discussion?
With the motion.
No, we're doing it.
We have to go back to discussion. Discussion, any discussion? If there's no discussion, I'll take a vote.
I don't have a problem with this. It's a 20-foot wide house, and you can't really go much smaller than that.
Mr. Wolf, your vote, please.
I don't have a problem with it either. I'm with the motion.
Mr. Soto?
With the motion.
Ms. Ferranti?
With the
Mr.
motion.
Montano?
With the motion.
I'm with the motion. Also, it's approved.
Item number 4, 59 Harvest Lane, MBP 120/906/3, R7.5. Thomas Lynch Esquire for Dennis Murray, owner. Vary Section 3.1.4.1, southerly side yard setback to 10.5 feet where 15 feet required. 6.3.2 to allow expansion of non-conforming structure to construct master bedroom addition to single-family dwelling in accordance with the submitted materials and survey James A. Dennison 3/16/23, plans JMR 4/6/23.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Just for the record, my name is Thomas Lynch, and I'm an attorney with the law firm Lynch, Trimbicki, and Boynton, and my office is located here in Milford at 63 Cherry Street. And I'm here with my client, Dennis Murray. I have to admit that it's evenings such as this that make me feel old. Many years ago, not too many, but a few years ago, I coached Dennis and my son Michael on the St. Mary's Recreation basketball team, and I have the pleasure of appearing with him tonight presenting this application for an addition to his house at 59 Harvest Lane. So this is a pretty straightforward application. It's a request to vary Section 3.1.4.1, the side yard on the southerly side of the property, I believe, to enlarge the master bedroom in the house to provide for a larger bathroom and a walk-in closet. We've also had to request a variance of Section 632 to expand a non-conforming structure, and I'll go into that in just a second. But Dennis and his wife Natalie bought the house in 2016. The house was actually built in 1981. It's a 4-bedroom split with 2,600 square feet. This was a lot on the Harvest Lane subdivision that was approved by the Planning and Zoning Board in 1978. And interestingly enough, when Jim Dennison's map came into my office, I noted, as you can see on the survey, a number of nonconformities as it relates to the lot itself and the house when it was built on the lot. I had actually brought this to Stephen's attention. I surmised that perhaps this subdivision was approved back in 1978 under a cluster subdivision regulation where you have open space and you can downsize the number of lots, still get the same number of lots in a parcel of land on a subdivision map as long as you leave open space. This was not approved under that condition. So I suspect, and also from the title search that we did on the property, there were no variances that were granted when the house was constructed. So I suspect, knowing the way that the Planning and Zoning Board operated back in the 80s, there may have been some form of waiver of the regulations for this particular property. Either that or there was an upgrade in the zoning classification from R12-5 to R18. Something happened, and my research can't determine what it was, but something happened because this lot is only 16,600 square feet in the R18 zone. It has a frontage of 90 feet when 100 feet is required in that zone. And as you can see from the setback lines that were drawn, the existing house has a non-conforming front yard, and it has a non-conforming side yard on both the northerly and the southerly portion of the property. So this proposal is merely to expand the house out and not even reach the 10.5 feet, 10.4 feet spot that is the current setback for the garage. It's to butt out the house and still be behind the 10.5 setback that currently exists. It's also a narrow lot that traverses wider at the front, further to the back, so it does have a irregular shape to it. And, you know, quite bluntly, the house has already been built, so there's no other place to, add on to complement the improvement that Dennis and Natalie want to do in terms of their bedroom. So that, as I said, this is a fairly straightforward request. It's not increasing the nonconformity that exists because, again, the addition will come out to a line that is set further back from the property line than the current garage. Other than that, Joe Rousseau submitted floor plans that we uploaded onto the site, so you had a chance to see that. But as I said, it's to expand the master bedroom to provide for a larger bath and a walk-in closet. I think it's a reasonable request, and we'd ask that you grant this application. Happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Questions? Go ahead, Mr. Soto.
Attorney Lynch, could you show us exactly where the addition's going?
It's going behind the garage.
Right there.
Yep.
That's it.
That's it.
That little bump out, that's all you're doing?
It's a bump out, and it's further back from the side yard than the current setback for the garage.
Okay.
Anything else? Any other questions? No? No? Anyone else speaking in favor? Anyone else speaking in favor of this application? Is there anyone here opposed? Anyone here opposed? 59 Harvest Lane. No further questions? This hearing's closed. We need a motion. You ready? Yep.
I move to approve the request to vary Section 3.1.4.1 southerly side yard setback to 10.5 feet where 15 feet required, 6.3.2 to allow expansion of non-conforming structure to construct master bedroom addition to single-family dwelling in accordance with the submitted materials and survey James A. Dennison 3/16/23, plans JMR 4/6/23.
I second it.
We have a motion to approve, and we have a second. Any further discussion? Any further discussion?
I have no problem with it. I mean, it's still less than the existing house is projecting towards it, so.
Any other comments?
Interesting history on Harvest Lane that I didn't know about, but I don't have a problem with this.
Thank you. All right, we have a motion to approve, and we have a second. Mr. Wolf?
I'm with the motion.
Mr. Soto?
With the motion.
Ms. Ferranti?
With the motion.
Mr. Montano?
With the motion.
I'm with the motion. It's approved.
Right. Thank you.
Item number 5, 5 Clinton Street, MVP 71/756/6, R7.5, Thomas Lynch Esquire for Errett and Jonathan Perkins, owners. Vary section 3.1.4.1, west setback to 3 feet where 5 feet required for elevator. Rear setback of 4.9 feet and 23.8 feet where 25 feet required for addition/elevator. Building area to 41.1% where 40% permitted. Lot coverage to 63.3% where 60% permitted. Section 4.1.4, rear projection to 18.2 feet where 21 feet permitted for deck. Section 6.3.2, expansion of non-conforming structure. Survey, Codispoti and Associates, 5/18/23, revised 8/16/23. Plans, A.J. Dushan, architect, 2/23, revised 8/1/23.
Thank you. And again, just for the record, Mr. Chairman, Thomas Lynch, office is here in Milford at 63 Cherry Street. And on this application, I'm representing Jonathan and Errett Perkins, who are the owners of the property at 5 Clinton Street. They're seated here with me tonight along with their architect, Amanda Duchin, who has put together the floor plan and elevations, which we've also uploaded onto the website for your review. So this application, even though the recitation of the variances sounds long, it's not that bad. The existing house on this lot in R75 zone is some 3,000 square feet. So this is a lot that was part of the Woodmont subdivision map that was subdivided in 1915. My clients lived in Woodbridge for many years. They now want to make Milford their home. They have actually moved to Clinton Street and done some work over the last 3 years since they purchased the property in 2020. So to begin with, I wanted to stress this is a very small lot. There's not much you can do with it. And I think the survey really speaks for itself in the sense that what we've applied for here really is sort of a transformation of the existing structure, and that's shown on the top part of the Codispoti map, and reconfiguring it to the proposed structure. So there's a side yard variance request on the easterly side, which is basically just a bump out of a bay window on that portion of the property, just to square that window off. The main thing is, prior to the Codispoti survey being done, there was a garage in the rear portion of the property at the end of the driveway where the proposed addition is. So when I say transposing what was on site to what we are proposing, the current house has a very large deck to the rear that goes basically right to the property line, right to the rear property line of the folks behind them on Beach Avenue. And that deck is going to be removed. The proposed addition is basically going to go into that bump out area where the deck was. So again, I hate to have Stephen flipping from the existing conditions to the proposed, but At the end of that driveway, it's not shown now, but there was a one-car detached garage that went right to the property line, and the current house has the deck going across the property line. What the proposal is to remove the rear deck, put the proposed addition, it's going to be part of the first floor dining kitchen area on the, basically the northerly side, the southerly side of the property. And then that bump out, the deck would be removed, and there would be a 4.9-foot setback at that point. Right now, there's no space between the deck and the property line, so with this addition, the deck is going to be removed. The addition is going to go into that area. It's only some 276 square feet. But again, just stressing the fact that there was, prior to this, a garage at the end of the driveway that's already been removed. So we have requested variances of the lot and building coverage, but it's minimal. I believe the building coverage number is 41%, and the lot coverage number is 63 versus the 40 and 60 that you're allowed. But when you take into consideration the removal of the deck and the removal of the garage that's already been accomplished, it really is not much of a difference between the lot coverage and building coverage for those structures versus what's proposed. If we can go to the floor plans, Stephen, Amanda's, that's the first floor floor plan. So you see in the bottom right corner, that's the proposed addition in that area. There will also be a deck that goes between that area and Clinton Street. And the side yard setbacks for those additions are zoning compliant. The request for the variance is for the rear yard between the property and the Beach Avenue house. And as I said, right now, the current deck structure goes right to the boundary line. So with this, there will be nearly a 5-foot setback between the addition and the property line. So I think, again, with what's been going on in Woodmont, this is a reasonable request. Grounds exist for the hardship because of the fact that we're reducing a nonconformity. We're taking away the rear deck. The garage was on the property line. That's been removed. So what is here is actually reducing a prior nonconformity. My clients have also reached out to their neighbors. I submitted to Meg this afternoon 12 letters in support of this application from all the neighbors in close proximity, most notably from Kathleen Walker at 3 Clinton Street, who is the neighbor adjacent on the west side of the property where the addition would go, and also Bonnie Drodowskiewicz, who's the owner of the property at 70 Beach Avenue, and she owns the property to the rear. If we can go back to the site plan, Stephen. We have letters in support from the two most affected neighbors to the rear and to the west. So if you have any questions, we'd be happy to entertain them. As I said, Ms. Duchamp is here.
I have a question.
Sure.
Sarah, did you want to go first? Go ahead. No, go ahead. Yeah, my question is, do we have any history as to how the deck got all the way out to the property line? And there was also a garage that was out to the property line, which I guess has already been removed.
The garage has been removed. I don't know if the deck received a variance in the past. I didn't do a title search on it, but the deck, as you can see from the survey, went right to the property line.
Because the percentages on this lot, even what's proposed here, are still, I mean, it's quite high. I mean, your argument is, of course, because of the deck that was there, that is making it less, non-conforming, but.
The percentages, Joe, as I said, on the lot coverage, it's 63% with 60 permitted, and the building coverage is 41% where 40 is permitted. So again, I used the term when I started my presentation about swapping, transposing. You're taking away the deck and the garage, and you're putting a 276 square foot house addition into that area, so that, again, it's pretty close to what was there.
Sarah, you had a question?
What did you say the square footage of the existing house is?
The square footage of the existing house, it's 2,600 square feet.
And the proposed house?
The renovations are going to be going on within the existing house, so the only addition is this bump out of the first floor living area, which is 276 square feet.
Okay.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Mr. Soto.
Attorney Lane, how old was the deck?
Do you know how old the deck is? Roughly, do you have a? They bought the house in 2020, so it was there when they bought it, but I'm trying to get an idea from the architect. 10, 20 years? 15 to 20 years?
Okay, and the garage, when was the garage built?
The garage was built back in the 30s, and that was taken down, yeah.
Okay.
That was your typical Woodmont detached garage in the back of the property. I do have a copy of the site plan. It's not shown on the Codispoti site plan, but I do have a copy of another site plan that was performed that has the garage, if you'd like to see that.
Okay, any other questions? Anyone else speaking in favor? Please come forward.
How are you? Rick Mangione, 6 Clinton Street.
Can you say your name again, please?
Rick Mangione, 6 Clinton Street. As the plans were presented by Mr. Perkins and Mrs. Perkins, we have no objections to the project. That's it.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Anyone else speaking in favor?
Mr. Chairman, I mentioned the letters, and they were submitted electronically, but I have hard copies of the letters from the other 12 neighbors I'd like to submit.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else speaking in favor? Is there anyone here opposed? Anyone opposed? Commissioners, further questions? We're all set? Okay, this hearing is closed.
I move to approve the request to vary Section 3.1.4.1 west setback to 3 feet where 5 feet required for elevator, rear setback of 4.9 feet and 23.8 feet where 25 feet required for addition/elevator, building area to 41.1% where 40% permitted, lot coverage to 63.3% where 60% permitted. Section 4.1.4 rear projection to 18.2 feet where 21 feet permitted. For deck, section 6.3.2, expansion of non-conforming structure. Survey, Codispoti and Associates, 5/18/23, revised 8/16/23. Plans, AJ Duchamp Architect, 2/23, revised 8/1/23.
I second.
We have motion to approve, and we have a second. Discussion?
Well, if you look on that old site plan, the deck was there in 2009, right to the property line, and the garage was there, and it was built in the 30s. So, I mean, I don't think what they're asking for is unreasonable.
It also is a pretty small lot according to the, let me just pull it up, the survey, less than 50% of minimum for the zone. And doing a quick look here on the GIS map, many of the lots are larger. There are a couple at this size, but really not many, so it's pretty small for the neighborhood.
And they're reducing the nonconformity on the deck. You know, you're going right to the property line, now you're going to have almost, 4.7 feet there?
Any other comments? Okay, we have a motion to approve, and we have a second on the motion. Mr. Wolf?
I'm with the motion.
Mr. Soto?
With the motion.
Ms. Ferranti?
With the motion.
Mr. Montana?
With the motion.
I'm also with the motion. It's approved.
All right, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Item number 6.
Nope, that's it.
What? Oh, we're done.
Item number 6 is postponed. Okay. Let's see. Any new business? Any old business? Staff update? Any other business? How about our minutes that
Yes,
Meg
Board
sent
member,
out?
Mr.
We
Chairman,
all looked through them? They're
Mr. Chairman.
Steve?
The board was emailed an economic development presentation. So you read it at your leisure.
I'm signed up for it. It's Thursday, 4 to 8. You can do it,
No, I'm not
the
talking about
training?
that. No, I'm
Oh,
talking
sorry.
about an economic development presentation. That was for, go ahead, Meg.
The board has gotten a lot to look at lately. There's training schedules, there's, that are available both in person and via Zoom. The document that Stephen is referring to is actually, I read it as well, and it's interesting in terms of the status of the city and its growth and development. So that you can just read. You have already.
All right, we need approval of the minutes from our last meeting. We all read them, we're all in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Okay. Any further business before we adjourn? Motion to adjourn?
Make
Thank
a
you.
motion to adjourn.
This meeting is adjourned.